Welcome back, friends. Today we will do lesson 4 of Frank ISC Economics. So, lesson 4 is what? It is types of economies. Before that, how many of you still remember what is economy? In order to understand the types of economies, we have to first understand once again what is economy. So, economy is basically a broad institutional framework within which economic interactions takes place in a country. What does this mean? That means economy is a framework or rather a system. You can say it's a framework or rather a system. Suppose if this is my framework, a structure, an outline, and a system within which economic activities takes place. And what are the important economic activities? The vital economic activities like consumption. Okay. Then the other one, production. This we did in the first lesson. And one more can be either investment or we can say distribution. So there are so many important economic activities. The framework within which the economic activities takes place are known as economy. Now let's move back to our lesson. So this was the definition of economy. How are we going to categorize the various types of economies? There are two basic categories on the base of which first we have to categorize on the basis of the degree of development. What does this word mean? Degree of development means whether it is low, good, moderate, like that. Okay. Then the other one will be on the basis of nature of the economic system. What does this mean now? Nature means the characteristics, the features, the properties of what? The economic system. So, on the basis of two types, one on the basis of degree of development, we will have how many types of economies? Two types, developed economies and developing economics. Next, on the basis of the nature of economic system, we will have three types of economies: capitalism, socialism, and we will have mixed economy. Let's quickly begin with the first one, developed and the developing. So, what did we see now over here? The developed and developing will be on the basis of what? Degree of development. So, let me tell you one more thing first, that what is development? If I'm saying development, because we are going to see what? Whether it is high, medium, or whether it is low. Correct? So when I'm saying degree of development, that means I have to first understand what is development. Development is not only about the growth of the economy. What do we understand by the growth of the economy? That means the national income, the GDP, the overall output, everything is increasing. That means it is growing. Now, development is not only about the growth of the economy, it is also growth plus the betterment of the standard of living of the people, standard of living. Now, what does this include? This includes your health, education, other non economic activities, other non directly materialistic activities, everything. Also, everything which gives you peace of mind, which gives you happiness, rather, we can say everything adding to the welfare of the society. So, when we club growth and the standard of living of the people, we come to the terminology which is known as economic development. So, based on this degree of development, we are now going to see the first one, developed economy. So, what is a developed economy? Well, as per the United Nations, the economies have been divided into developed and developing depending on their gross national income. Okay, gross national income per capita 2003, and they have been put into three categories. The first is the low income countries. Second, middle income countries, and the last is high income countries. So, as per 2003, the per capita, it was given that the countries which were having lower GNI per capita, lower than US dollar 1135 or less, were categorized as low income country. Then moving above, from 1135 to 13845 US dollar GNI per capita, it will be what? Middle income countries. And above 13846 US dollar per capita GNI, it will be high income countries. We can now jot it down over here. So, what is the low one, then middle one, and high one? And what are we going to see over here? GNI per capita. So what is GNI per capita? GNI per capita is GNI divided by the population of the country. So this is what GNI per capita. So depending on the various levels of GNI per capita, what will be the low? It will be lesser than anything which is lesser than how much US dollar? 1135. Then what will be the middle level countries? It will be from 1135 to 13845 per capita US dollar. Then what are the high level countries? High level countries will be anything above 13846. So these are the three categories according to the UN, how the countries have been classified as developed countries or developing countries. So these are the three categories. Next, a developed country is defined as a country which has high real per capita income. Please make it a point. It is high what? Real per capita income. So this is the definition of developed country. A developed country is a country which has a high real per capita income. Now, what do we understand by this terminology? Real per capita income. Why not only the per capita income? The real per capita income means the actual purchasing power of the people. And therefore, a developed country is a country where people enjoy a higher standard of living. Examples are USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, West European countries, etc. Now, what are the underdeveloped and developing countries? In economics, we term underdeveloped and developing countries as one as developing country only. So, we can say a developing country, on the other hand, is defined as a country in which real per capita income is either low and which has the potential of development. That means we are trying to say that developed country, the real per capita income was high, whereas in developing country, the real per capita income is low. But on the simultaneously, it also has the potentiality of development. That is, it's not a stagnant economy. It has the potentiality of complete or full development also in future. So these kind of countries are known as developing countries. Characteristics of developing and underdeveloped economies. So we will see the characteristics. We can see over here they have given down how many characteristics? They have given down total 14 characteristics. We can understand these characteristics easily when we go through the differences between the developing and the developed economy. Over here they have given you around 13 differences. Basically these are the characteristics of each of the economies. With this only we'll cover up with the characteristics also. Now let's begin with the characteristics one by one. As we have already seen, that developing country is a country where the per capita income is low but has the potentiality of complete development or development. On the other hand, what is developed economy like USA, Australia? These are the countries which have very, very high real per capita income. Now let's see one by one. Low per capita income, whereas developed has high per capita income. That means we are talking about what? Right now we are talking about GNI per capita income. Okay, correct. You can talk about any of the per capita income, but over here as per UN it is GNI per capita income. Then low standard of living, it is high standard of living. Existence of widespread of what? Poverty. But here is very low poverty. Large income inequalities, that means poor are poor, richer are richer, like that. So in developed, underdeveloped and developing countries, these kind of scenarios are more there, whereas in developed economies the income inequalities are very less. There is income inequality but it is very less. Predominance of agriculture as a source of employment. What does this mean? Predominance of agriculture, as we have seen, India is one of the developing countries, so you can get all the characteristic features suitable of any developing economy and the same as that of India also. So over here also we have predominance of agriculture as what? As source of employment. In other developed and underdeveloping countries, this is one of the very important features. Whereas in developed economies, large portion of the labor force depends on what? They depend on industrial and service sectors. and not on agricultural. Then next is higher contribution of agriculture in the national income. So this you can see this point is interrelated with this point. How? Because agriculture is a major source of employment, so it leads up to more of the income generation and therefore it leads to more of the contribution in the national income of the economy also. Vice versa, in developed economies, since the contribution of agriculture was less, and that of industry and service was more, therefore industrial and service sectors have more contribution in their national income. Seventh, high growth rate of population. This is again a major concern. In developed economies, there is very low growth rate of population. Growth rate of population is everywhere, almost everywhere, but it is very high in case of developing countries. This growth rate of population is again a main reason for all other reasons like poverty, large income inequalities, all these things. So you can relate all the characteristics or all the differences with each other because everything is like interlinked with each other. Then again, high level of unemployment. When I say high rate of growth of population, it obviously leads to high level of unemployment because in the next point you can see that low rate of saving and capital formation. Since we are having low rate of saving and capital formation in developing economies, that means we are not having much opportunities for more capital investment and more production facilities in future, which again leads to what? Which again leads to space of poor employment, underutilized employment, and moreover, because of more than that, the population growth is also growing very fast. Whereas it was what in developed countries, they have low growth rate of population, they have low level of unemployment. That means employment level is much better over there. They also have a high rate of saving and capital formation, means they always have a future built up that they will be forming again a next set of investment or earning with the current good capital formation. Inadequate infrastructure. Infrastructure includes their communication, transportation, everything. So, in developing countries, the infrastructure is not that well, whereas it is substantially good in developed countries. Use of traditional and less efficient techniques of production. Again, you can see over here inefficient infrastructure and use of traditional and less efficient techniques of production. So again, everything is related with what? Everything is related with your investment and capital, because of which it lands up to inadequate infrastructure, and subsequently it also lands up to the poor technology of production in developing economies. Whereas in developed economies, use of modern and advanced techniques of production. Again, use of modern and advanced techniques of production will give you higher income, higher earning, more opportunities of employment. And again, everything you will see that everything is linked over here. 12th, what is the 12th difference? Poor quality of human capital, low literacy ratio. Ah, one by one. What is poor quality of human capital? That means the education level, the skills, the knowledge of the people are overall very low over here. This is impacted with the health. This is impacted with the cultural and social hindrances also. Low literacy ratio. What does this mean? Low literacy ratio. Overall population attaining the literacy is very less. Low level of education. The level of education means whether they are in the middle level, primary level, higher level of education, that kind of education level of percentage in the entire population is very poor. Inadequate availability of health facilities, medical facilities, and other health facilities are very poor. Poor sanitation facilities, health hygiene facilities are also over here very underdeveloped. All these things again leads to what? Lesser production, lesser technological skills, lesser employment opportunities, widespread poverty, and all those things. So again, this is linked. Whereas in the developed economy, they have a better quality of human capital. Human capital means the labor force. They are very efficient because of high technology, because of skills, knowledge, education, professional education, and all those things. High literacy rate. From very beginning only, the literacy rate of their economies are maintained to be very good. which again leads in future also better production. So it's like a chain. If you have a poor production, if you have a poor health and human capital, it will lead to poor outcomes only. Then again, it will again lead to poor outcomes. Since in developed economies they have a very good human capital, it leads to higher literacy ratio, which again, since they are wealthy enough, they can again afford good education level, good technological education, and all those things. This creates adequate availability of health and sanitary facilities also. Last point of difference between developing and developed is predominance of primary exports. Developing economies, since their main source of income is what? Agriculture. So obviously, their main source of export or main bulk of export will be coming up from agriculture only, which is the primary export. Next is in developed countries, they are more dependent on products and services. So, how is this leading to be more developed or a growth of the economy? Since developing and underdeveloped countries are dependent on more on what? Agriculture. So, the chances of failure and other outcomes, negative adverse outcomes, are very high because of natural calamity, because of other natural factors. Sometimes it becomes a very great loss for the economy. So over here, what happens? The primary export dips, and thereafter your foreign exchange also dips. Whereas the dependency of export is less on agriculture in developed countries, and they focus more on the productions and the services, which are not related directly to the agriculture. Therefore, irrespective of the natural calamities or other natural circumstances, they keep on producing and their foreign earning continues. Next, we will do the types of economies and the nature of economic system. The first is the capitalistic economy or capitalism. Capitalistic economy is an economy in which productive resources are owned by private owners, individuals who use these resources to earn what? Profits, and in which the state intervention is minimum, means the government's intervention is minimum, so that the economic activities are mostly unplanned and uncoordinated. So how many words did you see over here in this definition? We have seen that capitalistic economy is mostly owned by what? Private owners, private individuals. They work with what? They work with profit motive. Secondly, state intervention is minimum. What is state intervention? The involvement of government is minimum. Therefore, it goes in a very unplanned and unorganized manner. Unplanned and unorganized. So, if you can remember these 4 points, you will be able to answer the rest of the questions based on capitalistic economy. Capitalistic economy is also known as free enterprise economy because, as we have seen, it is an unplanned economy. Everything goes freely, processes freely over here because there is nobody over there on top actually to create a bond or create some compulsions. Then it's a free economy. Market economy, as it's owned by the private individuals, or laissez-faire economy. Again, the same thing. Since it's a free economy, we also call it as a laissez-faire economy. Which economies are capitalistic economy? Examples are USA, Western Europe, Japan, and Australia, etc. It's very important to understand the features of capitalistic economy. See, there are how many features? There are around 9 features given in this book. So we will see each of them in detail. It's very important to understand each of the features. First feature, individual questions also come based on this first feature and the second one also. As I said, each of the characteristic is important. Private property. So whenever you hear this term private property, what actually strikes in your mind? That a property, it's owned by a private or a private ownership. That means it is not for the public. Correct. The same thing over here. Capitalistic economy's first feature is private economy. Private property is the very essence of capitalistic economy. It means that individual owners of the productive forces have the right to what? Acquire that property, possess that property, use and sell the property, and for productive forces. That means private owners have full decision power over here, decision making power of the property which they own. That means how they can acquire it, possess it, either they can use it, sell it for other productive purposes, etc. So basically, they do not have to look upon for anybody for these kind of practicing these kind of rights or benefits. However, this right is not absolute and unrestricted. They are saying, it's being said over here, this right is absolutely unrestricted. It's not absolutely unrestricted. There is little bit or a very, very minimal intervention of the government over here. Otherwise, this will go in a very haywire situational manner. Government also owns a little of the productive forces in forms of roads, railways, dams, and other infrastructures. So it's been said that not only the private owners, other than private owners, some places, some of the capitalistic economy, even government also has little bit of ownership. So this is subjective from country to country, but the main feature of the characteristic of the capitalistic is its private ownership, whereas individuals have their own rights to possess, acquire, sell, and do whatever with their property. Right of inheritance, as we know, the name inheritance says that one can inherit from his ancestor, his or her ancestor. But over here, it is about the right of inheritance. What does this mean? That means one has the full and complete right over that kind of inheritance, which flows down automatically from their blood relative, from their forefathers. This leads to what? The right of inheritance means that the property owned by an individual can be legally passed on to their legal heirs like sons and daughters. Now, whenever you have such right, wherein your property can be passed on to your legal heirs automatically, that too legally, that means what? You are safe and secure. You have the peace of mind that whatever you are earning today will not go in vain somewhere or the other, will not be donated to some other person, will not be used to someone. It will remain in your own family, in your own hierarchy. So, what this gives you? This gives you again the motivation to earn more. This provides a powerful incentive to the people to save and accumulate wealth. Whenever you know that all whatever I'm earning will only lead to the good of my own family, then you have that motivation to earn and create more and more wealth. Freedom of enterprise and occupation. First, it is about enterprise and then about occupation. This says enterprise freedom of enterprise means that the private enterprises are free to use productive resources for the production of a product of their own choice. Nobody is over here directing that a production firm has to produce only XYZ good. No, a production firm is free to select its own choice of good for the production. Similarly, when we say the freedom of occupation, it means that an individual can choose an occupation of his or her choice, obviously depending upon their education, talent, and ability and efficiency. Next, freedom of choice of consumers. As we have seen, freedom of enterprise and freedom of occupation. Now, the freedom of choice of consumers, where it speaks about that the consumers are free to buy and consume the goods and services of their own choice. And how it is possible? They can buy as per the nature, as per their taste and preferences by looking at their own income and adjusting and going through the prices of the given commodities. Price mechanism, very important topic in capitalistic economy. What is price mechanism? Price mechanism, as the name says, is a mechanism, is a process, a methodological process. But how does it flow? Price mechanism is the process by which prices of goods and services are determined. Okay, and it is determined by what? It is determined by the forces of demand and supply. What does price indicate? Price indicates the tag, the market tag price, which the consumer goes and pays in the market. So mechanism is basically where consumer decides the price, producer decides the price, and there is a fixed price. There is a common understanding price which is tagged on that particular commodity by the free flow of what? Free flow of demand and supply. So this mechanism is known as price mechanism. Price mechanism determines how the available productive resources are used for the production of different types of goods and services. Thus, price mechanism plays an important role in organizational production. Price mechanism acts like a hidden supervisor. Like, as we said, the government intervention is very less in capitalistic economy. So, who actually decides what price has to be put on a particular commodity or the prices to prevail in the market? It is this mechanism of demand and supply, wherein a common price is determined by the flow or the fluctuations of demand and supply in the market. Economic activities are coordinated largely through price mechanism. That is why Adam Smith regarded price mechanism as an individual hand. Price mechanism. So whenever asked what is price mechanism, first say it is a mechanism by which prices are determined. Prices are determined by the forces of, next is by the forces. Now what are the two forces? Forces of demand, and the second force is demand and supply, but where? In the market. That means there is no super body over here, no government intervention, nobody is there to tell you which price has to be put in commodity A, commodity C, commodity D, etc. So, how am I going to decide which is the correct price? This price is determined by what? This price is determined by the demand and supply. Now, you will see in future lessons that what is demand. Demand is something like this: quantity. Okay, so demand is something like this, which is downward sloping curve, and the other way, supply is like this, means demand is inversely proportional to the price of the commodity, supply is directly proportional. So when in a market, according to the prices or according to the various demands and supplies of the commodity, a particular price is determined, that this is the price where we can match the demand and supply and be at the best possible position. So these kind of price determinations are actually known as price mechanism. Next is competition. Now, as we have seen that the entire economy, capitalistic economy, is motivated by profit making. Therefore, the competition and the rivalry between the participants in the markets are also high over here. That means it actually exists and there is high competition between the various participants in the market, both in the product market as well as in the factor market. So, in product market, in order to sell the goods and services, whereas in factor market, the owners of to compete with each other to sell their own factor services. This competition leads to what? This competition will obviously lead to higher efficiency, better results, and all these things. So, these are this is a very important characteristics of capitalistic market, because everybody aims at lower possible cost of production, that too with higher efficiency. So what is the actual aim over here? To get cheaper cost of production with higher efficiency. That means maximum possible output with the cheaper cost of production, whichever is the best availability. Then it's profit motive. Capitalistic economy functions mainly with the profit motive. We can say it is at the heart of the capitalistic economy. Producers will produce more of those goods in the production, which they will able to earn more profits. And therefore, profit motive leads to what? Efficient allocation of resources as well, because that will lead to more and more or better production of goods and services, and thus higher profit. Self interest. Each and every participant in the capitalistic economy are motivated by their own self interest, that is, earning profit, or they have to maximize their sales or whatever. But then everybody is motivated by their own individual self interest. A laborer tries to get highest wages for his labor service. So everybody in the capitalistic economy is working for their own self interest. which actually acts again as an individual hand in coordinating the activities of various other individuals. Ninth characteristic of capitalistic economy, which is the last characteristic, it is minimal government interference. As we have seen in capitalistic economy, the private owners are the major participants, and therefore government interference is what? Minimum. It is not zero, but it is minimum, least possible government interference. The decisions and everything is actually majorly dominated by the private owners. Therefore, it is also known as a laissez-faire economy. Now let's come to the merits of the capitalistic economy or the capitalism. At a glance, let's see how many merits are there. In this book, there are 10 merits of capitalistic economy. Spirit of enterprise, incentive for technological progress, efficient use of resources, incentive for capital formation, new government goods, flexibility and adaptability, automatic working, economic freedom, increase in production and standard of living, expansion of international trade. Now let's see one by one. So when the first merit, it says about spirit of enterprise. What does this mean? Every private owner is working with what? Profit motive. So there is always a spirit, and they are always enthusiastic and automatically provoked to go for the entrepreneurship and for the best entrepreneurship. Therefore, this encourages new entrepreneurial abilities. This is what about the spirit of enterprise. Next is incentive for technological progress. Since the entire economy is working for profit, so they have to give some incentive for the technological production. That means if because of better technology, the outcome is good, so there is always a reward for that kind of improvement in the technological progress, which leads to the better outcome. So this reward is what? This is basically the profit which we are speaking over here. So competition has encouraged the producers to invent what? New technology and improve technological progress and thus improve the products also. So this is what? This is incentive for technological progress. Everybody is motivated. All this will give to higher profits. Efficient use of resources. As we have already seen that there is a high competition, so there is no chance we can lose upon the resources or we can waste our available resources. So efficient individuals are rewarded. Again, what we do, efficient individuals are rewarded. That means the labor forces are rewarded and inefficient ones are penalized. So the ones which they are inefficient, they are not able to use the resources, they are penalized. And there is a constant pressure to what? Maximize the efficiency of the resources. There is not a stagnancy or a consistent that the resources efficiency will remain at a constant level. No, there is always effort to what? Maximize the efficiency of the resources. Similarly, the workers work most efficiently in order to earn higher incomes. As we have seen that incentives are given for those who work efficiently. So therefore everybody is aiming to work very nicely so that they can also be rewarded with higher incomes. Next is incentive for capital formation. What is this? As we have seen, that capital formation is very much required. It's the base of all kind of future productions. So this is what this is about: the savings, the investments. How is it possible? Because of the uh, institution, because of the private property, because of the feature of private property, also because of the right of inheritance. All this encourages what? Individuals to create more and more wealth, accumulate more wealth, do more and more savings and investment, because everything will be with them. They can use it as their own wishes and as per their own decisions. So this acts like an incentive for more and more capital formation. Higher the capital formation, better will be the economic growth. This we all know that higher the investment and savings, the better is the economic growth. Fifth feature, new consumer goods. So everybody is aiming for what? Profit, and there is high competition in the market. This leads to what? This leads to technological progress, etc., and everybody improves the quality of the product. Not only they improve the quality of the product, there is always motivation to produce new types and new varieties of the product. So the capitalistic economy encourages actually every time new inventions, researchers for better and better outcome. Flexibility and adaptability. There is high degree of flexibility and adaptability in the capitalistic economy. Why? Because it has it has lesser intervention of the government, and with that it can withstand various stress and pressures like political crisis, business cycles, and technological changes with its own market mechanism. So it gets adapted to the changes of the conditions and the environment. And conditions and the environment means like technological changes. It has to get adapted to it, otherwise it will not go on earning the profit if it becomes slow in those kind of adaptations. It has to show its flexibility by adapting itself to the large scale of production also. That means production output has also to be increased for more and more, for lesser cost of production and for more efficient production. Then it also has to go for new techniques. It also has to increase. New techniques has to also be increased for better outcome. Seventh merit is automatic working. As we have seen that there is no planning body or a central agency, there is no government intervention, less government intervention, so it works automatically. It is, what is this automatic force? It is impersonal forces of the price mechanism. We have already seen this price mechanism wherein price is decided by the market forces of demand and supply. So this is impersonal forces of price mechanism which enables the capitalistic market to take all important decisions, like solving the basic economic problems of what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. So this is how it works automatically. Then economic freedom. Eighth merit is economic freedom. Everybody is free to make their own decisions as there is no intervention or minimum restrictions from the government. So freedom of enterprise means they can set their own types of production process, production product quality, the variety, the type of the commodity, etc. As well as freedom of consumers is also available over there because consumers are free to decide on what they can purchase or what or how much they can save, etc. So there is overall freedom in the economy, economic freedom, both for the consumers as well as for the enterprise in the economy. Increase in production and standard of living. Now, as we have seen that the production is increasing because they are always motivated by the profit, so they go for technological upgradation, etc. And thus, whenever the production is increasing, it creates more and more opportunity for employment, more and more opportunity for more outputs of goods and services. When more output of goods and services are available to the general public, to the people of the economy, that means their standard of living obviously grows better. So we can say that large increase in production and national income leads to better standard of living. Why? Because capitalistic economy, they their economic growth is by adopting what? Higher rate of better technological advancement and all those things. People in the capitalistic economy today enjoy higher income, higher standard of living, and more luxuries and more leisures also. Last merit, expansion of the international trade. Now, capitalistic economy is always motivated by the profit earning. So they do not restrict their business or their trades within the country itself. They go to the outer countries. That means international boundaries. They also go for the exports and imports. So over here, economic interaction expands over here. Thus, if we can conclude all the summarize all the merits of the capitalistic economy, we can say in simple word that capitalistic economy leads to what? Higher income, more output, higher efficiency, technological progress, new products, higher standard of living, and more economic freedom. So this is all about the merits of capitalistic economy. Now let's quickly see some of the demerits of the capitalistic economy. So to summarize, it's 8 points over here. There are 8 points over here. Inequalities of income and wealth, class struggle, economic instability, misallocation of resources, waste of capitalist production, emergence of monopoly power, neglect of social welfare, and domination of economic values. Most of this you will find like a contradict to the merits, which we just discussed in the capitalistic economy. So what is, it's like two faces of the coin. Let's see how it is dealt with. Inequalities of income and wealth. What does this mean? That because of the profit mooting and because every enterprise is just aiming, or every individual is going for the self interest, what happens? Higher the income, obviously that person will have the higher ability to produce and earn more in future also. So this leads to what? Richer people becoming more richer, people becoming poorer and poorer. So this is what is about the income inequalities. That in capitalistic economy, one would witness in affluence along the acute poverty, multi-storied buildings, along with slums and extravagant luxuries. The inequality is inherent of the capitalistic system because of the institution of private property and the right of inheritance and concentration of productive forces. That means since one is already rich, because of the rights of inheritance and private property, the richness remains with this particular individual, and it grows to be more and more they grow to be more and more rich. So what happens to the other part of the population? They remain poor, and thus this parity, this difference between the rich and the poor increases, which shows that inequalities of income and wealth. Next demerit is the class struggle. So as we have already seen that the rich become more rich, the poor become poor. So there is always a class struggle. Class struggle is what? It is actually the direct result or the direct consequence of the inequalities of the economic system in the capitalistic economy. The haves will have always more and more, and the have nots, the poor, will always be poor. So there will be a gap over there. It's always divided into two group of haves, and one will be haves not. Next is economic instability. So instability arises why? Because of there is no coordinating agency. Since there is no supervision of any central planning body, so therefore high chances or high level of economic instability is always prevailing in the capitalistic economy. Possibility of overproduction is there, underproduction is there, booms and depressions, inflation and unemployment. So as we have seen that capitalistic economy is the economy wherein the business cycle, we have already seen the business cycles, business cycles of recessions, depressions, all these things keeps on going. So this is the economy because of this instability. And because of instability of economy, what happens? High level of human miseries and sufferings are also observed in the capitalistic economy. Misallocation of the resources. What is misallocation of the resources? What do we mean by that over here? Since the rich people have more purchasing power, okay, the rich people have more purchasing power, they can purchase more of the resources for the production of their own kind of goods. What are the kind of goods for the rich people? For the production of luxury goods. So the resources are more diversified or diverted towards the production of luxury items rather than the productions of the necessity or the non luxurious items. Next is waste of capitalistic production. What is this waste of capitalistic production? What are the capitalistic productions like the technologies, the goods, all these kinds of the high modern technological things, machines things? These are the waste. How it comes out to be the waste? Suddenly, because of discovery of some better or new techniques, and because of the ongoing pressure, what will happen? You are forced to get rid of the old techniques of production. So that means the old technology of production you have to get uh, waste, or you have to get rid of it, so it becomes a waste. Next is consumers discard many consumer goods like cars, etc., as the new models approach. We have seen that in capitalistic economy always research, new product invention, and all these things are always there. All these are why? Because of the capital competition, ongoing competition. Everybody has to beat the other one to get out the maximum profit from that. So because of that, obviously you cannot depend on the older technologies or the outdated technologies, which has to be discarded. It becomes a waste. Old models or the outdated models, it becomes a waste again of any vehicle or anything. Some, similarly, producers also go for excessive advertisement. Why? Because you have to promote your productions. So this advertisement actually increases the cost of overall cost of your production. This cost of production falls on whom? Ultimately, it falls on the consumer as the final market price. Okay. At last, plant's capacity remains underutilized due to the cutthroat competition. Why plant capacity remains underutilized? Because maybe the capacity of your plant, the infrastructure is high, but because of the cutthroat competition, now you are shifting from one kind of production to another kind of production, and thus that plant capacity remains underutilized. Next, sixth demerit is emergence of monopoly power. Obviously, because of the uh, private owners their own rights, and because of what, because of profit moting and purchasing power, income inequalities and everything, cumulatively it leads to what? It leads to monopoly. Monopoly is what? A few giant firm controls production in most of the industries, restricting the output only and only as per their own choice. Therefore they charge higher also. So this is again a demerit of capitalistic economy. Next is neglect of the social welfare. As everybody is working for their own profit maximization objective, ultimate the social welfare objective is, it becomes secondary or completely neglected. Last is domination of the economic values. Now, what is this domination of the economic values? It gives more emphasis on pecuniary and the self interest, earning money and becoming more and more richer by what? Earning more and more profit. So, this results the subordination or the secondary prioritization of the human values like human, social, moral, religious, and cultural values. So, these kind of thing becomes very dangerous for the overall economic welfare. So these were the demerits of the capitalistic economy. After we have seen what is the capitalism economy, that is the capitalistic economy, now the second type of economy is the socialistic economy. So let me once again revise that the types of economies based on what? Based on the nature of the economy. So how many types of economies are there based on the nature of the economy? First we have already done, which is the capitalistic economy. Now we will do the second one, which is the socialistic economy. At last, we will do the mixed economy, which is the combination of the capitalistic and the socialistic. That will be the third one. The mixed will be the third one. So now let's begin with the socialistic economy. Socialistic economy is the economy wherein the production are owned by the entire society and operated by the public authority according to a general economic plan. So this is the definition of the socialistic economy. What does this mean? This means that the entire production, unlike the capitalistic economy, which was owned by the private owners, here it is owned by the entire society. Everybody is the participant in the production process. And who is the owner of it, operator of this? Who is the supervisor of this? So there is a public authority. We can also say there is a government or a central authority who supervises or decides the economic plannings and makes the entire processes of the economy. So let's begin with the features of the socialistic economy. Once again, let's see as a summary what is the feature. At a glance, we can say socialistic economy, ownership of productive resources. Then economic planning. Here we will talk about the government as an authority. Then social welfare as a motivating force, since it is owned by the government and everybody is a participant. So social welfare is the main thing. Then economic equalities. That means unlike the capitalistic one, here the inequality is less. Then classless society. So what did we see in capitalistic economy? There were two basic types of classes, haves and haves not, which is not over here. Then elimination of the competition. So now let's begin. First is socialistic ownership of productive resources. So friends, what are we discussing? We are discussing the features. Okay. What does this mean? All productive resources such as the land, mines, mills, factories, banks, etc., are owned and controlled by the state. So who is the owner and controller of all the resources over here? The state. And what do we mean by the state? The government, the central planning authority. However, Private ownership is also permitted, but it's very restrictive, and it has been given to smaller production section like the handicraft workers, personal possessions like the clothes, household goods owned by the households. Okay, so this is the first feature. Second is the economic planning. In socialistic economy, the central planning authority allocates the productive resources according to the definite plan, in accordance with what? In accordance with the social and economic goals. So there is a central planner, the supervisor, agency which plans all the economic activities. It's known as the central planning authority or the government. Third, social welfare as the motivating force. So, friends, as we are saying that this is a sector or the economy wherein the government plays major role and the entire society is a participant. So, the motive of the motive of social welfare replaces the profit motive of the capitalism. In capitalistic economy, we saw the profit was the main motive, which has been replaced over here by which objective? By the social welfare objective. So over here, in socialistic economy, the individual interest is subordinated to higher interest of the entire community. So once again, you can understand that in capitalistic economy, we saw that individual interest was given more importance. That means the self-interest feature. Over here, entire community's interest is prioritized. Then talking about the economic equalities. What is this economic equalities? Yes, this is about equalities, balance between the rich and the poor. So this kind of equalities, the income of the rich and the poor over here are almost balanced. So there is a very narrow inequality. It means that the socialistic society tries to bring out absolute equality. And what absolute equality? Absolute equality is neither feasible nor desirable. And absolute equality in practical life is absolutely not feasible. It's not practically possible and not desirable also for many other reasons, because we cannot have a society where everybody becomes like more middle class, or everybody becomes equal to rich and the poor. No, that cannot be a smooth functioning also. We require some upper and lower level. But then what does this mean? It means a socialistic economy recognizes that some income differences are essential in view of difference in skills, talents, and efficiency. So here everybody gets the opportunity to participate. Therefore, it is based on the principle of egalitarianism. Once again, it is based on the principle of, you can say this usually comes in MCQs and 1 mark question. It is based on the principle of egalitarianism. That means principle of equality. This word means equality, wherein the distribution of income and wealth is almost balanced. Cashless society. Then what did we see over here? That why it aims at equal distribution, still there is level of some degree of inequality. Why? Based on the talents and skills and efficiency of the population or the people. Obviously, the person possessing the talent to become a good doctor cannot be put into equal category as that of a simple clerk. Okay, so these kinds of things differentiates, and these are not very significant. We try to keep in socialistic economy so as to create less and less of differences. Next is the classless society. As we have seen in capitalistic, haves and have nots. Since over here income inequality is less, therefore there is no such establishment of any separate class in socialistic economy. Why? All people earn their income by working for the state. So everybody is at least earning. So there is no such segment left who do not have. That means they have nots. No, there is no such segment. Everybody is working according to their own efficiency. Therefore, they get their income from the labor income. There is no scope of unearned income. Therefore, class distinction do not exist in socialistic economy. And which also means since there is no different classes, the chances of economic exploitation is also very less. Next is elimination of competition. As we do not have the self interest over here as a priority, and profit is not the main objective, therefore there is no such competition over here amongst the production. And this avoids what? This stops the monopoly of production of all types of goods in the socialistic economy. That means it leads to lesser exploitation, and thus people can avail the goods and services at the appropriate prices. And this thus stops the business cycle, the various fluctuations of booms and depressions. Moreover, the prices of goods and services are regulated by the state. Therefore, the prices are regulated by the state over here. Next is, so we have seen all the features of the socialistic economy, correct? So let's now go to the merits of the socialistic economy. What are the merits of the socialistic economy? First is better allocation of resources. Why in socialistic economy we find a better allocation of resources? Because production is done with the objective of maximization of social welfare. When we do any production with the maximization of social welfare, we try to employ maximum amount of resources available so that everybody and everything in the society as a resource gets an opportunity to be utilized. Second reason. So first reason is it works with the objective of maximization of the society. What is the second reason? In socialistic economy, allocation of resources is made by planning authority to promote social welfare. Since there is a body which is deciding the economic activities, therefore it aims to cover all the resources and utilize all the resources appropriately and in the best fuller utilization way. Therefore, we can say better allocation of resources. Second, a topic, a feature, a merit related with the previous merit. Fuller utilization of the resources. As we have already seen, the planning authority plans the economic decisions over here or takes the economic decisions over here. Therefore, the planning authority will never like to leave any resource unutilized or keep in mind that the welfare of the society is taken care and thus each and everybody gets the opportunity, thus everybody gets utilized, which aims at fuller utilization of the resources. Third merit, elimination of economic instability. As we have already seen, what that the differences of riches and poor's economic inequalities are less over here, and there is no such section or classes like haves and have nots, which ultimately leads to elimination of economic instability. That means the fluctuations, the business cycle fluctuations are less over here or absolutely no over here. What are the business cycle fluctuations? The four business cycle fluctuations. That means prosperity, then recession, depression, then again recovery. So these are not there in the socialistic economy. Why? There is a planning. For the answer for everything is that there is a central planning authority who decides everything and therefore it monitors and therefore the chances of overproduction or underproduction are eliminated, which finally eliminates the business fluctuation chances also. Equitable distribution of income. Again, this we have already seen in the feature. Once again, it's a repetition in the merit that it provides equal opportunity to all, irrespective of caste, color, and creed. Moreover, there is no possibility of property income or unearned income. That means, like in capitalistic economy, we have seen that right of inheritance, the ones who are rich, they only become richer and richer. So there is a section who becomes more rich and the other one remain underprivileged. Over here, since everybody gets the equal opportunity and there is no such right wherein automatically things will pass, it's everything is decided by the government based on the efficiencies and all, and there is no discrimination on the basis of caste, color, and richness also. So there is equitable distribution of income. Then elimination of class society struggle. Yes, since there is no equal uh, economic instability, no income inequality. Therefore, there is no creation of any kind of class over here. That means the class separately is not formed over here like haves and have nots, as everybody is getting employed and every employer employees conflict in a social. There is no possibility of employers employees conflict in a socialistic society, as everybody is employed and so everybody is earning their own living by working. The state has no reason to exploit the workers. Instead, the state gives them benefits to workers with social welfare in mind. Therefore, there is no such creation because everybody is benefited by the socialistic economies, equal opportunity pattern, and by the decision of the government. So there is no such separate class creation. Then what? The sixth merit is provision of social security. As we have seen, that socialistic economy is what? It's about the social welfare. Therefore, appropriate social security measures are taken. This includes the basic facilities of housing, education, health, old age pension, etc. Seventh merit, increase in productive efficiency. So, again and again, we are seeing that there is equal opportunity in socialistic economy. So, all are provided jobs. This increases what? This increases the productivity. Since everybody is employed, everybody is in the production function. So, overall, there is a higher productivity efficiency. And there is no exploitation also. The workers are motivated to work hard since there is no exploitation. The resources are also allocated in optimal way, and therefore there is less chances of unutilized production capacity. Rapid economic growth. Since every resource is being utilized, government aims at the social welfare to ensure higher economic efficiency. Government utilizes the resources in the best possible way. The central authority is able to increase the rate of savings and investments also, since it has to control on consumption and saving. So there is a body who finally can decide that yes, how much to spend, how much resources to utilize, what all productions to be done, and then the government or the central planning authority decides that actually what will be the consumption amount, and thereafter the remaining what will be the savings. So when there is such a proper planning of savings and consumption by any central agency, unlike the capitalistic one where there is entirely left on the market fluctuations and the forces of demand and supply, here the government body decides the amount of consumption, then it can also decide on the amount of savings and investments of future. Whenever there is good savings and investments in future, that means large funds are able to be accumulated for the technological progress and research and development, which brings about what? Growth in the economy by the improvement in technologies. Last merit, production of more useful good. So unlike capitalistic economy, where they are motivated by the production of only the profit making goods, here the production of more useful goods are done. That means the goods which are in more demand for the use or the consumption by the society are prioritized to be produced, and that to be produced more, like the basic necessities and commodities of mass consumption such as food, clothing, etc. Here, since there is no profit motive, therefore they also produce the goods which might involve larger investment and which might have also lesser profits, like production of social goods such as drinking water, roadways, defense services, etc. These are all goods which are taken by the public, and these are avoided to be focused more in the capitalistic economy than in the socialistic economy. So, friend, this is the summarization of the merits which we have just discussed for the socialistic economy. So, after doing this, now let's come to the demerits of socialism. You can also think of few of the demerits of socialism because it is entirely owned by the planning authority. Correspondingly, what all things can be the demerits? Before just straight away looking into the points, you can also start thinking what can be the demerits of the socialistic economy. So let's begin. There are 7 demerits in all in the socialistic economy. Difficulties involved in the rational allocation of resources. So, friends, when you will see the demerits, sometimes you might get confused that some of the points have been discussed as the merits also. So, as I mentioned in the capitalistic economy, it is like the two faces of the same coin. That means the same thing can be looked at two different ways, like whether it's a merit in some cases or it's a merit in other case. We have already seen that socialistic economy's merit is fuller utilization and efficient utilization. Then how come difficulty involved in rational allocation of resources? Let's see this. There is no free or competitive market for factors of production in socialistic economy. And everything is taken care by whom? By the planning authority. Therefore, the prices of factors of production can also not be determined only by the market forces. In these absence of the prices to be determined, that is the factors of production cost to be determined, the cost of production commodity of the commodity cannot be calculated also. Therefore, it is difficult to have a rational allocation in a socialistic economy. So, what's the answer of this? That why do we not have a rational allocation of resources in socialistic economy? The answer is this, that since we are unable to calculate the exact cost of the prices of what? The various factors of production, or we can say, since we are unable to directly calculate the cost of production of the commodities, as we are not dependent on the market forces or factors, therefore it becomes difficult to actually allocate what amount of resource to which commodity and in how much quantity. So that is where rational allocation of resources becomes difficult in socialistic economy. Next is loss of efficiency. Now again, it's again like a contradict. We have also already seen that there is efficiency in resources, and again, what is the loss of efficiency over here? First, there is lack of appropriate incentive system to motivate people to work hard. Unlike capitalistic system where people get incentive for working good and they also get penalized for not being productive, which is totally absent in socialistic economy. Therefore, there is no motivation at all to work harder and harder to increase their own, improve their own efficiency. Secondly, the industries or other economic activities are managed by bureaucrats. These bureaucrats are not as efficient as private entrepreneurs. So, who are the bureaucrats? The persons supervising from top, they might or might not be directly involved in the market. They might just have the supervision or the administrative talents and knowledge, but they might not have the exact experience of the market to give out the most appropriate decisions of the market. This leads to lesser efficiency as compared to that of the capitalistic society. And it also leads to red tapeism, delays in decision making, nepotism, and corruption. So, as I said, bureaucracy is the topmost peoples who hold the position in the planning committees and all in the various sections of the decision making of the economy. So, slowly and slowly, it leads to red tapeism. Some of the works they remain unattempted or delay without any reason, without any logical reason. In fact, they are kept unattempted also, and they are not even solved or allocated in various production purposes. And there is also delay in the decision making, like the decision makings are not also done in the proper time whenever it is required. They are delayed because of what? Because of the several bureaucracy involved over here. And this is all equally affected by the politics, the social, and everything. Nepotism, like over here also in bureaucracy, favoritism has been given to own blood relatives or the family members. This also decreases the efficiency of the entire decision making. And obviously, corruption, which includes mostly the bribes, etc. This leads to wrong decision making or inefficient economic activities. Loss of incentive. Since there is no such reward given to the hardworking people, and there is no such scene of any incentive over here, so their jobs are protected whether they work efficiently or not, inefficiently. In socialistic economy, what happens? Your jobs are protected irrespective of the efficiency of the work you do. This leads to what? This leads to lack of competition, and thus there is no such motivation and all also. Then loss of consumer sovereignty. Unlike capitalistic market, where we have already seen that the consumers get equal chance deciding on what to purchase, what not to consume, depending on their own income and the prices and choices, here the consumer sovereignty or the freedom over here is limited. The biggest shortcoming, it is said to be the biggest shortcoming of socialism is denial or consumer sovereignty. Here, unlike the capitalistic economy where consumer was the king, here the consumer is not the king. He Production is no longer guided by the preference of the consumers. Then how is the production guided? How are the producers guided what to produce and what not to produce? A socialistic economy produces goods and services in a limited variety. The consumers are denied by the choice among varieties of goods. Because who makes the decision about the commodity selection and amount and price? It is only by the central planning authority who decides everything about the production. Loss of freedom. Unlike the capitalistic one, there we have seen that freedom was there both by the enterprise and by the for the consumer. Here, there is no private enterprise in a socialistic economy. Therefore, the freedom of occupation is also absent. Consumers do not enjoy their own choice. Similarly, the producers do not enjoy their own freedom of what to produce and what not to produce. People are not able to enjoy civil and political freedom also. People are not able to express their grievances freely. Concentration of economic and political power. Since we have seen that bureaucracy plays a major role, the socialistic economy leads to concentration of both economic and political power in hands of government. The government has the absolute authority in the country. This increases the power of government over individuals. That means who is more powerful? The government. Therefore, there is every possibility that a handful of politicians and bureaucrats may start enjoying absolute power. Loopholes in the planning process. Since everything is guided by the planning authority, the planning mechanism, which we have already seen, has loopholes of demerits of what? Nepotism, corruption, decision making, red tapeism, and all. Therefore, such kind of loopholes already leads to very poor planning processes also. Inadequate information regarding economic resources and presence of consumers and inadequate statistical data regarding production of various goods and services may stand in the way of efficient functioning of the planning process. So, what is the main reason? That inavailability of proper resources also. That means when we are not able to acquire or gather the correct information data regarding the actual fluctuations or economic activities prevailing in the market, thus and rather than that we are directly totally dependent on the planning authority's whole decision, then it leads to the loopholes in the planning process. So here we can see the demerits of socialistic economy as a glance. Difficulties involved in rational allocation of resources, loss of efficiency, loss of incentive, loss of consumer sovereignty, loss of freedom, concentration of economic and political power, and at last, loopholes in the planning process. So now is the time to see the differences between the socialistic economy and the capitalistic economy. So here's the difference between the socialistic economy and the capitalistic economy. First, we'll see what does capitalistic economy say. Economic resources are owned by private owned individuals, whereas in socialistic economy, economic resources are owned by the state, and there is no such right of private property, which is there in the capitalistic economy. Second difference, producers, resource owners, and consumers are free to take economic decisions. Whereas over here in socialistic economy, none of the producers or the consumers have such a freedom of taking decisions. Then who takes the decision? The planning authority. Next, price or market mechanism is the basic coordinating mechanism in capitalistic economy which determines the prices of the commodity. Whereas in socialistic economy, The planning authority, it takes or makes the planning based on the market mechanism. All economic decisions are taken by the central planning authority. Fourth, maximization of profit is the main objective in capitalistic economy, whereas maximization of social welfare is the main objective in socialistic economy. Then there is competition. Obviously, competition is an essential part in capitalistic economy, but there is no competition in socialistic economy. Then there is minimum intervention. See, there is no zero intervention. There is least possible intervention of the government in capitalistic economy, whereas socialistic economy is entirely a state or the government regulated economy. Seventh, economic power is concentrated in the hands of capitalist class. Who are the capitalistic class? The riches, the haves? Yes, the economic power entirely lies in their hand. They have the monopoly of this. Whereas economic and political power is concentrated in the hands of government in socialistic economy. 8. There exist a large inequalities between rich and poor based on the distribution of income and wealth, whereas there is very less inequality in socialistic economy because it is based on the principle of egalitarianism. There is there exists class struggle, haves and have-nots, but there is no such class struggle in socialistic society, which says it is a classless society. So these are the differences between capitalistic and socialistic economy. You can take the screenshot. You can refer your own book for this. Okay. After we have completed the socialistic and the capitalistic economy, now we will see the mixed economy. So, as the name says, mixed means it's a mix of two types of economies over here, the capitalistic and the socialistic economy. Therefore, the features will also reflect the same. First feature, coexistence of the public and the private sector. It means for the as the public sector is important or it's existing over here, it also has a feature of this socialistic economy. And the private owners also coexist over here. Thus, it also has the features of capitalistic economy. Second, coexistence of both and capitalistic and socialistic economy, the one which we already discussed in feature 1. Third, economic planning. So over here, the entire decision and everything takes place according to the economic plannings. Fourth, regulation and control of private sector. So private sector is regulated and controlled also over here. So the private sector exists, but it is not free. It is continuously regulated and controlled and supervised by the public sector, which is the government or the planning authority. Promotion of social welfare, as we can see that public and the government is equal importance over here. Therefore, always social welfare is one of the important activities or the objectives, and therefore promotion of social welfare is always targeted at. Next is role of price mechanism. Since private owners are here, the role of price mechanism, that means the prices are free to be decided also by the market forces of demand and supply and not only by the governments. Next, profit motive. Since private owners exist over here, capitalistic features are over here. So, profit motive being the main feature of the capitalistic economy, it is one of the features of the mixed economy. Next, preservation of freedom. Preservation of freedom means that people they can freely choose upon their goods and services, decide upon their production processes, but there is a preservation of it. That means all of them are not free to do that. They have to decide according to the various objectives of the social welfare, as well as they can be guided by their own profit motive objectives. So there is a balance between all these things, and therefore it's not that entire freedom is lost because of the socialistic economy feature. No, freedom still exists here, as well as the control is also there. So everywhere, friends, over here, whenever you discuss the feature of the mixed economy, try to mention both the features of the capitalistic and the socialistic economy, and there is always a balance of both the features, which ultimately gives you, or which ultimately lands up in the features of the mixed economy. Then let's see the merits of the mixed economy. Obviously, the merits will be comprising both of the socialistic and the capitalistic economy's merits. So, correct. First is the proper allocation of resources, because we are not only guided by the profit motive, we are also guided by the social welfare. Therefore, resources are properly allocated, no overproduction or underproduction risk is there. Whereas the resources are also allocated based on the efficiency decision. Economic stability, avoiding the demerit of the capitalistic economy, where the economy was highly unstable because everybody was going through the profit and were running by the competitive mode. Since over here the planning authority plays an important role and guides and supervises the private owners, therefore economic stability and the chances of boom and depressions are very less. Advantages of market system, since private owners are here, so they take the advantages of the market systems, like the free flow of the market systems. Also, the 100% decision making by the planning authority is not does not exist over here. That means the market forces, the demand, supply, the consumers own wishes, they also have important role over here, which ultimately leads to the decision of the correct prices. Rapid economic development, since both the private and the public sector are working over here hand in hand, therefore taking the advantages of both of them, both the competitive nature as well as the social welfare nature, if we combine both the natures, there is high and speedy economic development, which is not only about the growth but also about the standard of living of the people. Then we see check on concentration of economic power. Since the planning authority is always there as a agent, as a central power, therefore there is less chances of the economy or the wealth power getting concentrated in just few hands. Rather, we can say there is very less chances of monopoly arising in the mixed economy, as in the direct capitalistic economy, because of the central planning authority making such controls and decisions. Economic and political freedom is one of the biggest merits of mixed economy. Economic freedom, as we know, the private owners are there, they are having their own decision making ability. They are guided somewhere or the other by the social welfare motives of the government, and they were restricted by taking some irresponsible steps. But that doesn't mean that they are not provided freedom. Private owners have been provided equal freedom under certain limited restricted guidelines. This shows that there is always economic as well as political guidelines. The planning authority guides so as to take the steps, but the freedom lies in the hands of the producers, as well as the economy, also in the hands of the government. So, everywhere there is a proper balance going on. Consumers are free to choose goods and services. People are also free to choose their own occupations. That is the way there is economic and political freedom. So these are the merits and merits of the mixed economy. Now let's come and see few of the demerits of the mixed economy. While we have seen that it's a mix of both capitalistic and socialistic economy, the demerits of mixed economies are very less. First is conflict between the public and the private sector. As we have seen, private sectors are always guided, and there is always like a support, or the right, rather we can say like a supervision of the planning authority, so that they do not deviate entirely by the profit motives, which leads to the anti-social welfare activities. Therefore, there are high chances that when the private owners will take certain decisions which might not be aligned with the public welfare motive, so there can be conflicts. Then short lived nature. Why do we say that the mixed economy is of a short-lived nature? Because in mixed economy, what happens that the two sectors may attempt to expand the cost of the other. The public sector expands to such an extent that it is able to take other private sectors. So, therefore, in this overtaking and in dominance competition, this is a short lived nature economy. Third demerit of the mixed economy is inefficient operation. The private sector may be able to operate effectively due to excessive control and regulations of the government. The private sector, sorry, may not be able to operate effectively. Yes, we have seen this, that the private sector works efficiently in because they are rewarded in the capitalistic economy. But over here we see that since they are always controlled and regulated by the government on their each and every step, therefore they are not always efficiently working. On the other hand, the public sector may not be efficiently working because of lack of initiative and responsibility of the part of bureaucrats. So the bureaucrats play such an important role. Because of them, even the public sector land up in inefficient functioning. Fourth demerit is poor performance of the public sector. This is well aware that the public sector faces lots of lack of performance, which are like suffers from inertia, inefficiency, and red tapeism. Also, we have seen it suffers from nepotism, etc., etc. So these all land up in the poor performance of the public sector, which affects the entire economy as a whole. Excessive regulations in the name of mixed economy also, the government sector regulates private sector a lot by imposing excessive controls like licensing system, monetary and fiscal regulations, etc. So these kinds of regulations also hampers the growth or the result, the efficient outcome of the private sector, and thus excessive regulations is like one of the demerits of the mixed economy. Let's see some other types of economies. Simple and complex economies, we'll just see the definitions because these just come by the definitions only. A simple economy is one economy wherein each individual specializes in the production of one commodity only. So it becomes very simple. Suppose person X is specializes in production of clothes only. So it becomes very simple in deciding those kinds of economy, the occupations and production processes, because one individual is capable of producing only one product, whereas in the complex economy is there is a high degree of specialization, complex division of labor and mutual dependence. So it shows that specialization is a lot over here, and high degree of specialization means the types of works will require special skills and knowledges, and also the dependency on one production is high on the dependency of the other on the production of the other goods and commodities. So such kind of economies are known as complex economies. For example, in order to produce uh, a laborer in a textile mill either spins or weaves or dyes or clothes. This is what this is a part of. We can say that the labor is skilled in only spinning the mill or the dyeing the clothes. So that will become the part of simple economy. But why does it land up as a complex economy? Because every small part, like if the labor is only specialized in spinning, then this spinning will not help him earning or will not help the other production processes until and unless they are interdependent or interlinked with each other. So finally, a group of all such skills will land up in the production of one commodity to satisfy the human wants. So these are the type of interdependencies, and the spinning and the dyeing of the cloth by this labor was the special skill by this laborer. So the production on a very large scale with huge advanced techniques of production, exchange is done, use of money in complex economies. What is closed economy? Closed economy is the one which does not do transactions with other world, like rest of the world. Closed economy is an economy in which any economic transactions with other countries of the world are restricted. That means they are self dependent and they deal with their own goods and services, and they neither export nor import from the rest of the world. Whereas an open economy is an economy which has economic transactions with other countries of the world. So nowadays, most of the economies are open economies because of international and globalization. Whereas in closed economy, initially we had examples like China, Brazil, but nowadays most of the economies have turned out to be the open economy. As the name says, the next two types of economies are agricultural and industrial economies. An agricultural economy is that economy which is primarily engaged in agricultural activities. Secondly, an industrial economy, on the other hand, is an economy which is primarily engaged in industrial activities. Next is regional and global economic grouping. So, what are these? Let's see. These institutions have been formed with what objective? These regional and global institutions, their objectives is it's like they are the members. Who are the members in this institution? The various countries. Different countries are the members of this institution, and when they form any institution in a group, they have common objectives. Likewise, some of the institutions have been discussed over here. The first we will speak about is about SAARC. The full form is South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. Remember it? SAARC, SAARC, South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. Okay, when it first began, it started with 7 members, but finally, there are now how many members? It has increased to 8 members. So, who are the member countries in this SAARC? They are India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Maldives, and now Afghanistan. Let's see what are the objectives of SAARC. First, to promote welfare of the people of South Asia and improve their quality of life. Second, to accelerate economic growth and social progress and cultural development in the region. Which region? South Asian region. Third, to promote and strengthen, not only to promote, but also to strengthen what? Self reliance. This has now turned out to be a very important thing, self reliance among all the South Asian countries. So we can see there are the three objectives of SAARC. So the questions might be, what are the main objectives of SAARC? First is promote welfare of SAARC, promote welfare of the people of where Southeast Asian region. Then to accelerate economic and social and cultural growth in this region. And thereafter, not only to promote but also to strengthen the self reliance of the countries in South Asia. Next is Association of Southeast Asian Nations, and the abbreviation is ASEAN. Once again, what is the full form? Association of Southeast Asian Nation. Just now we saw that there were how many countries in SAARC? 8 countries. Whereas in ASEAN, that means Association of South in Asian Nations, there are how many? There are 10 countries. Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, Singapore, Brunei, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, and Myanmar. So, their objective was to promote regional economic, political, social, and cultural cooperation among the member countries. So, they formed a member group so as to promote internal, regional, economical, and social economical among these members so as to have a very smooth transactions. This was formed also with the objective so that to reduce the trade barriers within these countries and so that they can compete with the rest of the international world as a bloc. It created a free trade zone among its members. It created a free, they can trade freely among its members and could also compete as a bloc in the international trade so that as a group they form a power. This ASEAN emerged as one of the most successful organizations in the globe. So we can say it's a global influence and regional successful as ASEAN has world's most successful and influential organizations. The Free Trade Pact. So this is the main objective, the Free Trade Pact of ASEAN, and it has accelerated trade between Asian group as well as India. Next is the European Union, EU. So how many countries were there in SAARC? 8. In ASEAN, 10. And now it is 26 countries in European Union. Some of the countries are Denmark, Ireland, Greece, Spain, Portugal, Austria, Sweden, Finland, and Czech Republic, Hungary, Estonia, Latvia. Then some of the the 6 European countries: France, Belgium, West Germany, Italy, Netherlands, Luxembourg. What is the main objective of this European Union? The main objective of this European Union is developing a internal single market by eliminating the internal tariff barrier among its members. So the 26 member countries, they have formed such rules and policies so there can be free movement of market or economical transactions within this country. Free movement of people, goods, services, capital within the member countries. Other than that, it also aims formulating common policies on what? Trade, agriculture, and regional development. They have also created a common currency which is known as euro. Next is the G8, that is the group of 8. And the countries are United States, UK, France, Germany, Italy, Canada, Japan, and Russia. So, as you can see, the name of these countries, these are very advanced, industrialized, leading countries. So, why do they meet on and why have they formed this group? Because they meet regularly discussing and setting what goals, economic, political, and military goals for the global future. So, there are 8 countries in G8. They have focused their attention on the questions of economic, social development, energy, environment, trade, tourism, ecological, and social security. However, with Russia leaving the group's name is reverted to again G7. The group of 20. As we can see, it is how many countries group? It is 20 countries group. Unlike G8, which was the group of leading industrialized advanced nations, it is a group of developing nations or emerging countries. So it's a group of how many countries? 20 countries. And these countries, individual countries are Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, China, France, Germany, India, Indonesia, Italy, Japan, Mexico, Russian Federation, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Republic of Korea, Turkey, United Kingdom, United States, and the European Union. Therefore, there are overall 20 countries participating in this group. They meet regularly and their forum, the nations, they discuss about the economic and financial issues related to the global economy. Their aim is pertaining to the promotion of what? International financial stability. So as to promote what? Global economic growth. They separately meet annually. And who meets? The finance ministers and the governments of the central banks of these countries. So, this is about the lesson 4, which is types of economies. We will be next doing lesson 5. Join with my channel so as to complete entire ISC class 11 course via this book so that you can feel confident to face your school and future exams. See you. Thank you, friends. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel. Please stick to my channel because I will be completing the syllabus of economics IAC CBSE class 11 and 12.